All right, here we go. Peace. My name is Jermaine Henry. I'm a creative, MC, facilitator, and mental health advocate. You ever need a space just to speak your truth? Like that vulnerable truth, that honest truth, that courageous truth? Well, this is my space with you right now. Starting a new series called Brave Enough, Living with Chronic Depression. You see, recently I shared publicly on my social media about my diagnosis with persistent depressive disorder, aka chronic depression. So I'm going to take some time to do some long form type of content because I realize I have a lot to say and it's really healing for me to actually share my personal story. Often I'm advocating maybe for someone else or advocating for myself, but not in such a direct way where I'm speaking to you and letting you know my experiences and what's going on up here, but also how I am reconciling with my mental illness, how I'm learning more about my diagnosis and understanding more about myself and my needs in order to take care of myself, in order to take care of my responsibilities, in order to show up in loved ones' lives, in order to be the best me, Jermaine Henry. Oh, there's probably gonna be a lot of tangents. I can't fry. I already see it. Today, and in the series, we're going to be talking about at least this diagnosis, persistent depressive disorder, and how I'm dealing with it. Another thing I want to share, because I got notes. Brave Enough, Living with Chronic Depression, a space for truth telling, healing, and connection for those of us living with long term mental health challenges, especially in the Black and Brown communities. When I shared about my diagnosis on social media, I shared that I was 30 years old when I was first diagnosed with persistent depressive disorder. And I'm going to share more about what that disorder is, what are some of the symptoms, the criteria for diagnosis. But I'll share even why I'm sharing more and speaking, even though this is very vulnerable. Just so you know, like, this is very uncomfortable for me. I can't even front. And if you know me, I talk about braver space and I'll break down the acronym that I have for braver or to be brave, right? For this, we'll go for brave. So brave, come with me now. Brave is to be bold, real, accountable, vulnerable, expressive in our relations. I'm trying to create a brave space. And then I'm brave enough. Even if I don't share all my story, I don't share every single detail, even if I'm not the most raw, honest, articulate in the matter. I'm trying to be braver in the matter. I'm trying to share my story for my own healing and for someone else's healing, for their own connection, for us to connect, for you to be inspired. Because I need connection. I need inspiration. So I'm doing this as well, not to like, I'm a practitioner, I'm not really an expert. I'm an advocate, but I'm also someone that lives with experience. So I'm a peer support and I need peer support. But I am a practitioner as well, not a clinician, but I am in this field working with different clinicians, social workers, nurses, psychiatrists, done that. Yeah, I find right now the most impactful thing that I can do for myself first and for others and to change the system is to speak from the heart directly, speak about my personal experience and how I'm using hip hop healing, shameless plug, hip hop healing and these movements in a braver space in order to heal and grow, you know? And I was going to share, when I shared openly about being diagnosed, someone DM'd me and was like, "Thank you so much for sharing. I have PDD. I have persistent depressive disorder, and it's not talked about enough. It's not talked about enough, but then also people don't even know how to treat people with chronic depression." So then I literally was like, called them up. Or I was like, "Hey, can we talk?" And because I don't really talk to a lot of people that have chronic depression, and we had a conversation. It was really insightful, and yo, we all need to do better, really, because I'll get into all of it, but we need to do better how we're speaking to people with chronic depression. And I think now I'm going to start with defining it, because it's not just depression, right? Just a bout of sadness where you can't get out of bed for a few days. There is major depression. Major depression is a real thing, right? Where major depression, where we're looking at, is you having temporary severe depression where you can't get out of bed, you're not eating, or you're excessively eating, like you have thoughts about suicide, all these things. So trigger warning for this whole conversation. I don't know what's going to trigger you or what not. And typically what I will do if I was doing a workshop or a speaking, which I'm going to do right now in this moment for whoever's still here and you're invested, before we go further, let's do this. So first is take a mindfulness moment. And for this one, we're going to take a couple breaths. So I invite you to breathe in and out. Another one in and out. Now this third one. And breathe in, sigh out. Wow, I needed that. Mindfulness is definitely a practice that is critical for my treatment. I'm going to get grounded, be here with you. So, yes, this is very terrifying, but also exciting when I think about who this may help and how it's helping me. But we're going to first with a definition. So, persistent depressive disorder, also known as dysthymia, barely know how to pronounce that, aka chronic depression, is a form of long-term depression. It can look, it can last for years or not if you get adequate treatment. And this, it means like living with a low mood almost every day, and not just low mood, like it's ruminating, negative thoughts. What I would do, I think, for this is I'll go through the DSM, like the diagnosis manual, DSM-5. Yo, I keep on going from like not looking at anything to looking at myself in the camera. We're working through this. Like, it's funny, not often people can really see how, well, maybe people really do see. Like, I'm very nervous oftentimes when I'm public speaking, especially now speaking about something so personal. Very nervous. Um, and trying to be present and not get in my head of like, yo, man, you're messing this up. Like, you're so nervous, you're so this, like all this critical, self-critical, this judgment, this doubt, which comes with it. So persistent depressive disorder is not as severe as major depressive disorder, but it's longer lasting, which can be challenging. And then, mind you, I was diagnosed at 30 years old. So I've been experiencing some of the symptoms that I'm about to share with you now, since I was like, I don't even know. Okay, the one that I know for sure is like 15. As early as 15, I've been experiencing these symptoms. And 30, so 15 years, literally 15 years. So I was going with my life of dealing with persistent depression, thinking now that it was part of my personality or character. And when I shared the post about my diagnosis, I one of the lines that I shared with is mental illness is not a character flaw. I really felt like it was a part of my character, and I lacked integrity. I lacked accountability because of my depression, because of the depression I experienced. Wow. So with the DSM-5, for at least 2 years, 2 years or longer, without there being 2 months of you feeling quote unquote normal for 2 months, but like 2 years straight, without longer than 2 months of not experiencing these symptoms, you have persistent depressive disorder or chronic depression. What are the symptoms, Jermaine? Yeah, man, I'll get to it. So, depressed mood for most of the day, for more days than not, as indicated by the subject or the person. Yeah, or observed by others for at least 2 years. Poor appetite or overeating, insomnia or hypersomnia, low energy or fatigue, low self esteem, poor concentration or difficulty making decisions, and also memory, feelings of hopelessness. Whew. Wow. Do you see yourself in any of those? So when you go to the psychiatrist and you're going through assessment, they assess for at least two of the six of those symptoms. So now I'm going to share a bit about my journey to diagnosis, how I got there. So I got diagnosed probably 2020. So this is during 2021 probably actually. So during COVID time. So a lot going on. How it happened. So I wrote a book about a rest in power JV. I wrote a book called I Believe Dreams Be the Author of Your Own Legacy. And in that book, I was talking and I dedicated it to JV. He passed away in June of 2019. I released the book, I Believe Dreams, A Vision Guide, Be the Author of Your Own Legacy, in December of 2019. Wow, I keep on, yo, this is funny. I released the book in December 19. Um, and then COVID hit 2020, early 2020. And I had all these dreams, right? All this passion, this drive to push out this book. And I really wanted to make more of an impact, leave my legacy. That's what it was. We went to COVID and I wasn't able to like travel and do anything that I was really trying to do for my launch, but I started to do some online type of engagements and getting some funds for that. Where am I going with the story? So also at that time, um, in COVID times, I also was like in a relationship. I was in a relationship as well. And I got, oh, yes, this is what I was saying. So because of COVID, there was COVID and then George Floyd. With everything that's happening with George Floyd, with the Black Squares, all of that, all these organizations were looking to support Black people more. I was able to access from Wellness Therapy. They were offering a fund, a therapy fund for Black identified people. So what I did was I used that to go to therapy pretty much. And I still have that therapist even now, 5 years later. However, during therapy, I'm in therapy. I'm also in this relationship. To be very honest, it was a bit of a toxic relationship. That person was dealing with their own mental illness. And I was trying to support them in that or just be there in that. And that was really difficult for me. Yet at the same time, they're on medication, they're in treatment and whatnot. And they were just noticing myself. Like I was in grief. I was definitely grieving this time, right? I'm grieving JV, but also like something even deeper than that, and talking about how long I've been depressed. And they were encouraging me to go seek a diagnosis. They're like, yo, like it would be even helpful for you to have a better understanding of what you're going through. So yeah, finally I did. I called up my general physician. I called up my family doctor, set an appointment, and I was letting them know some of the stuff that I was going through. And at first they were like, "All right, like I'll they're like, okay, prescribe to you some citrulline, so an antidepressant, right? A low dosage. See how you feel." They were doing that, but I also was like, "Hey, like I would love to like get a diagnosis or to at least assessment so I can get more information on it." So then they did. They referred me to a psychiatrist at Lake Ridge Hospital, and we did this all actually all via Zoom. And the psychiatrist asked me a series of questions, fill out those questions, and it was wild because yeah, they came back with you have persistent depressive disorder, and I got that letter, and it was so interesting for me because I was like I knew it, like I've known and had this relationship with depression for it felt like most of my life, so I knew it. But then for a clinician, for a psychiatrist to diagnose me and to say that was significant, and then I ended up getting the medication, going to get medication, and in therapy, trying out medication. While mind you, y'all, I'm a social entrepreneur, so I'm also trying to do some change agency work, but I'm burnt out. I'm dealing with my illness and trying to figure out and learn more about it. A lot was going on, and I've I've still been learning, and even now I'm learning a lot more, even to this day, about treatments, about different treatments that might work. And after that, I was studied in treatment, but also at the same time, I was just trying to survive, yo. Because one thing that I didn't mention, and again, like I'm really trying to just accept myself and just tell stories. And there's gonna be things that are here, that are there. Like that's where I'm at. So I was diagnosed with persistent depressive disorder, chronic depression, but the ADHD, ADD diagnosis, the complex PTSD, the substance use diagnosis, like all those things, I'm not diagnosed with, but trust me, I'm dealing. And then if we look at social determinants of health, anyways, I'm starting to go off. But a part of that time when I was getting diagnosed, and one of the reasons why, even after of with trying medication and trying different things, because I started living on my own, and living on my own during COVID, it's really challenging. And then even living my own period is just so challenging. I come from a big family, right? And I also lived in a blended family, in a big blended family for a while. So community and family and having people around, like I know that. And then I've also had roommates. So I've always kind of had that, but I've never just lived on my own. And that was a dangerous experience. And I'll probably get into more of those experiences at a later date. Like right now, I'm just kind of talking about me getting my diagnosis, and what it means to me is it actually is helped me to exercise some self-compassion and grace. It's like, yo, fam, you've been dealing with a chronic disability, invisible disability for more than half your life, for like half your life, more than half your life. You've been dealing with that. And you've still been functioning, you've still been achieving, living out your dreams. Maybe not as where you wanted to in your dreams, but you are living the essence of your dreams. You are making that impact that you're looking to make, living a purpose despite this illness, despite your own thoughts that get in the way, despite the lifestyle that might get in the way. And that's really like helping me to feel good, proud of myself. Like, yo, fam, you're chronically depressed and you still making moves. Like, I know you're always comparing yourself to other people, comparing yourself to your potential, ruminating all about these negative thoughts and having been this pre-logic, this pre-operational place. But let's just be present right now for a moment and really take in that despite the illness, despite life circumstances, despite it all, you were here. One of my favorite quotes is, we have survived 100% of our struggles to date. So I'm a survivor. I'm a survivor of chronic depression. But let's move forward. I want to live. I want to thrive. So let's do that together. So this was the first episode of Brave Enough, Living with Chronic Depression. My name is Jermaine Henry, aka Main Man, and stay on stream and get tapped in. If you have any questions or you're interested to get more connected, want to learn more about my work, about myself, you can definitely follow at jermainehenry.ca or go to www.jermainehenry.ca or email me at heyo@jermainehenry.ca. heyo@jermainehenry.ca. Peace. One love. And thanks for taking the time. Like, let me see if there's anything else in my notes. My bad. And I fully ended the whole episode and I'm going back to my notes now. Yeah, this was great. So Bible shared the final note. If this spoke to you, sit with it. Maybe journal. Maybe breathe. Maybe listen to some music. Maybe share this with someone else who might be in a fog. You don't have to have it all figured out to be brave. You're already brave. You are already brave enough. One love. Thank God. We made it. All right, peace, y'all.